The wind howled across the dusty plains of Dry Creek as if it carried all the town's secrets in its whisper. And among those secrets was the name of a young woman whose own family had bartered her future away like cattle at an auction. Her name was Lyra, 23, quiet, graceful, and branded by cruel misfortune. Barren, they sold her as. Unable to carry children after a childhood illness had nearly taken her life. And when her parents began drowning in debt, the whispers in the town grew darker and more impatient, until one cold morning she found herself standing in front of a widowed rancher, Everett Cole, a rugged man in his mid-30s who had buried a wife 4 winters ago and since then lived alone with only the company of horses, silence, and ghosts. Her father, impatient and ashamed, shoved her forward as if she were a burden he couldn't wait to discard, muttering to Everett that she was healthy enough to cook and clean, but useless for the cradle, and Everett's jaw clenched at the words, his eyes lingering on Lyra's trembling hands rather than the cynicism dripping from her father's tongue. He paid without haggling, his voice low and steady, then told Lyra to gather her things, though she had none, and led her away, ignoring her parents' cold nod of relief, while Lyra kept her eyes lowered, too afraid to even breathe wrong, because she believed deep within that she truly was broken, unwanted by her parents, unchosen by the world. When they rode across the land toward the ranch, Everett didn't speak, until finally he asked if she was warm enough under the wool blanket, and she swallowed hard, whispering yes, though her teeth chattered. Arriving at the ranch, she found a modest house built of wood and care. Not luxury, but a warmth radiated from it that she hadn't felt in years. Everett showed her the kitchen, the spare room, the stack of firewood, and told her she had her freedom to walk the land, rest or work, whichever made her feel human again. And she blinked, unsure she'd heard him right, expecting chains of obligation, commands, cruel duties, but instead he simply said, I don't need children. I need someone who understands quiet, and walked away, leaving her stunned. Days passed with peaceful routine. Lyra learning how to feed the horses, mend small tears in gloves, warm a house with soft laughter Everett never expected to hear again. And she'd find him watching her sometimes, eyes softening, but when she'd look, he'd whip his gaze away, pretending to focus on rope or saddle. The townsfolk, however, were not so kind, whispering hateful things when she fetched supplies, sold as Barren, poor rancher, no heirs, family shame, and she would walk home fighting back tears, hiding behind her long hair. But Everett noticed her quiet sorrow, and asked gently one evening over stew if she wanted to talk about the voices outside. When she finally admitted the shame she carried, he set his spoon down, leaned forward and said, voice like thunder muffled by care, children are blessings, but love is choice. And for the first time, she felt her heart uncoil from the cold fists surrounding it. Weeks turned into months, and Lyra began sleeping again, deeply, without fear. And one spring dusk, Everett returned from town badly injured after helping break up a drunken brawl outside the saloon, blood staining his sleeve, and as she tended to him, hands steady but soul-quaking, he realized how deeply she cared. He grabbed her wrist lightly and whispered, no one gets to decide your worth, before pain pulled him into unconsciousness. She hardly slept that night, watching over him like a guardian spirit, and when he woke to see her head resting beside him on the bedside table, his heart cracked open wider than the plains. Rumors then turned vicious, jealousy sparking from young women who'd once hoped to catch the widower's gaze. And one night a group of them cornered Lyra behind the general store, taunting her, calling her useless, empty, until she burst into tears, and Everett found her moments later, knees pulled to her chest. Something inside him snapped. Not violent, but fiercely protective, and he held her close, whispering words he hadn't spoken since his first wife. Gentle promises that morning light would always find her. Eventually he confronted the gossiping town quietly but firmly, telling them he owed none of them heirs, that his land would not be inherited by cowards, and that Lyra belonged to his home as surely as the sunrise did to dawn. Little by little the townsfolk backed down, shamed by their own cruelty. That summer, the ranch flourished like never before. Crops stunningly green, horses healthy and strong. And the local preacher said, God sometimes blesses unexpected unions. But Lyra dismissed such talk as fantasy, until Everett one night, sitting on the porch under a blanket of stars, asked if she knew what she wanted in life, not what others dictated. She shyly admitted she wanted to be loved, to be seen, to be more than Barren. And he took her hand, voice trembling like branches in wind, and said he didn't need a child to feel like a man. He needed a companion to remember he was alive. The moment bloomed slow, like wildflowers after rain, and they married quietly 2 weeks later, just the preacher and the whisper of the wind as witnesses. And something miraculous happened then, not in womb, but in heart. Lyra began teaching local orphan children how to read, how to grow herbs, how to mend their clothes. And those parents who once mocked her now asked for her guidance, ashamed of their past mockery. Everett watched her light spread like dawn over the plains, realizing she was never barren at all. She birthed hope, possibility, and kindness in every person she touched. Years later, on a quiet autumn morning, Everett hugged her from behind, chin resting atop her head, thanking her for giving him a life fuller than he ever imagined. And as she looked over the golden fields where children she'd nurtured chased each other in laughter, she finally believed her purpose wasn't to prove her worth through bloodlines, but through the legacy of love she planted. So whenever you find yourself doubting your value because others don't see what burns inside you, remember Lyra, the girl sold as Barren, who became the mother of a community's heart. The woman loved fiercely by a man who spoke the words most of us long to hear. I don't need children, I need you. And if you want more inspiring stories like this, stories that remind you your worth can never be defined by others, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Join our growing family, and let's keep lighting the world one story at a time.